Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Facts on the Ground. I am Misty Winston. I am joined by my co host, Jesse Zerwell. And today we are very excited to welcome back to the show writer, comedian, hosts his own show, has amazing live shows on Fridays. It's 8 p.m. usually, right? Am I right?
Yeah,
Is
the
that right?
virtual comedy shows,
Okay.
8 p.m.
Okay.
last Friday of every
Yes.
month. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So check out those for sure. They're funny. And yeah, Krish Mohan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
Very
thanks
excited
for
to be
coming
back.
back.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're always like, thanks for coming back because we never know how that's gonna go. Oh, should I just turn my okay. Yeah, so we wanted to talk to you because your channel has been getting fucked with.
Yes.
I think as we've seen like a rash of this happening across genres. Like I know that like a lot of different kinds of channels are getting messed with. I think because the algorithm is stupid. But there's been a lot of like hardcore obvious censorship of particularly lefty media and lefty like entertainment spaces and all of that stuff. So when did this start for you?
Well, I feel like my channel's always been fucked with because every time my subscriber count starts going up the following week, something happens where it's like either a video can't get uploaded or it just doesn't get recommended or anything. But this time around, they gave me a warning in early February about a video where I talked about Trump getting acquitted. And there was a Time magazine article that basically came out and proved that, the Democrats ran their own Cambridge Analytica, right, by using targeted ads and partnering with think tanks and all that kind of shit, which is exactly what Robert Mercer did in 2015 for Trump. He partnered with a British company called Cambridge Analytica, which specifically used ads and psychographics to manipulate elections. They try to get certain people, and it's worked. In Africa, they've done it. So, but it was the same tactic, and the difference was in the article they kind of outlined how there was an advisor to the president of the AFL, which has never really been on the side of the worker, right? Like if you look at the history of the AFL-CIO, like they've been racist and sexist. They specifically were trying to like only empower the white working class and ignoring like everybody else. And they would have arguments with the IWW and people like Eugene Debs and like the people that were really in the labor movement. So this union that's kind of been co-opted by the Democratic Party, because you can't really be a union and side with a political party. That's like not the point of a union. So this article basically outlines how this advisor to the president decided that, Trump can't get reelected, so we have to go on this like huge campaign starting in August of 2020 till November to get Joe Biden elected. And that's what they did. And none of the stuff is technically illegal, right? In quotes, like it's all above the board, but the question should be, why is it above the board, right? Everything that happened with Cambridge Analytica was also above the board. This is stuff that's allowed to happen in American elections. It's not a big deal. But why is that okay? That's
and
really
why
the
is that
question.
okay while they're also allowed to yell about Russia for 5 years?
Exactly. Right.
Because nobody fucks with our elections more than we do. Like
Yeah.
we fuck with our own elections. That's just common. I mean, come on. You cannot actually think that our elections are not rigged from the inside.
Maybe Israel.
So it's a call
To
for
be that
election
naive, because there
integrity.
are people. Ugh.
Maybe Israel. Israel's
Yeah.
probably on par with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big
Well, and they influence our elections far more than Russia could ever dream of. I
Yeah.
mean,
Based on
there's,
political ties,
but
and
nobody
influence
talks about
that way.
Israel.
people
Yeah,
forget
exactly.
people forget
Becomes
that
taboo.
Netanyahu testified before Congress in support of the war on Iraq back in 2000. It might have been, I think it was 2002. There's footage of it. And
let's talk about Saudi Arabia too, because everybody talked about Trump's collusion with Russia, right? Dude, like opened 8 businesses in Saudi Arabia during the campaign, but nobody mentioned that. Like he actually did have business dealings inside Saudi Arabia with Saudi Arabian billionaires, and some of the royal family, I'm sure. But there was no mention of that. He didn't start any businesses in Russia. There was 0 of those.
right.
It's weird that we
that's
don't
because
talk about
the Saudis
that.
are our friends. They're
Right.
our buddies. We
That's what drives you
we
crazy.
sell them weapons.
The hypocrisy. Yeah.
No big
Ugh.
Yeah.
deal. I mean, and that's kind of the hypocrisy of the whole thing too. Is on a journalistic end of things, is what happened to Jamal Khashoggi is horrific. It's awful and terrible. And like the only person that on the mainstream that covered it was Hassan Minhaj. And the second he covered it and that went up on Netflix, the nation of Saudi Arabia influenced an American company to remove somebody from their platform, right? Which is kind of the same thing that's happening on YouTube. Is there are foreign actors or domestic actors. There's a lot of people from the Democratic Party that are essentially influencing a private company to silence certain voices, which really goes against the First Amendment. And
Yes.
again, people will argue and say, "Oh man, it's not that big of a deal." Because they're a private company, and if you don't like what they do, if they don't like what you're putting up on their platform, then they don't have to keep you on their platform. Which yes, but also no,
No,
like
no.
constitutionally that goes against, and like that's why we have a constitution in place so that private corporations can't do that sort of shit. And do you really want something like YouTube to control speech? That's always what this has been about. So if
Well,
I
and
bring
that's
up,
the thing. That is the thing though. People who say that drive me crazy because you're basically saying that YouTube can be influenced by outside sources in order to take down someone who has a differing opinion with money. Like you can buy that influence. Um, then that goes beyond them being a private company. They're no longer a private company.
yeah,
They are that's I mean that
they're a political
you cannot
mouthpiece
you
at that
have to
point.
be they have to be neutral on both, like you can't, you know what I'm saying, like there should be
Yeah,
no way to influence them financially because this is speech, this is your right to speech, like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all of those things are like public arenas, they're public squares. These are companies that were helped tremendously by taxpayer initiatives
hmm
and public schooling, that a lot of their employees have gone to public schools, and like we we own like a stake in their success. And the
yeah.
fact that like three or four people are allowed to have that much power and control and influence over our ability to speak is not okay. That's not okay. We and that
But
And
needs like we need
but
they need to be broken up.
and the
That's it
private
should be.
the
oh,
private company point is moot because you can extend that argument as far as you want. You can say, well, such and such is a private company. I was going to say Lockheed, but I don't know if they're publicly traded or not. Um, but a private company can carry out drone strikes against wedding parties or funeral
right.
parties in Afghanistan. And you can't complain about it because they're a private company and they can do whatever they want. How far do you want to extend the logic? It's already at a
Exactly.
bad place with our free speech. So
Oh my
uh,
God.
we
Well, that's
can
well,
People
that's
have
the
no
shit.
idea.
I mean, people called me an alarmist when I saw Amazon Go, like those Amazon Go stores, which you download the Amazon app, it has an RFID tracker on your phone, and it's like, okay, this is a cool piece of technology, kind of, if it wasn't going to be used for nefarious deeds, right? Like it's super convenient, people have everything that they need on their phones and all that kind of stuff, and again, like technology like that draws this line between dystopia and utopia, right? And
Hmm.
based on the way that our system is run, we're leaning towards a dystopia. And people were like, "Oh, well, you're being an alarmist by being worried about this." And I was like, "Not really,
Um,
because if Amazon decides that they don't like the fact that I chastised Jeff Bezos on a video or in my stand-up, and they're like, "Oh, well, we don't want this person that talks bad about our company." Well, what if they shut down my Amazon account and I can't go buy groceries anymore? And that's the only way. Like this is not a store. Essentially, what they've introduced is a walletless checkout system, right? Where you
hmm.
go in, you pick your things, and then you walk out, and it charges your account, and you're done. Like it's this hyper huge level of convenience, but really all they invented was a point of sale that they will then give to other companies that they will connect through an Amazon server and so on and so forth. This is shit that they do. This is just how they kind of operate. There's it's become really, really difficult to not shop via Amazon because a lot of their like a lot of different companies deliver through an Amazon hub. So it
Mhm.
might not say
Yes.
Amazon on the truck. It might be
Well,
like,
and it's not even just that. We just talked to Sam Carliner about this.
mhm,
Amazon kind of has a monopoly on stuff.
yes,
Like I live in a small town, and so I have like a Walmart, a Meijer, and like a mall that is dying the slowest and most painful death. There's like a game
yes,
arcade. There's a movie theater that's in the same parking lot, but it's not like the same building. And then there's like a couple stores inside that are hanging on. There's nothing in the food court
yeah,
really. I think there's an Aunt Annie's or whatever, like a pretzel joint. But that's it. And so there's not like a lot of places for me to get things that I need around here. And so I could either drive into the city and go to a store there. And even then, it's not guaranteed that you'll find what you need. You're going to have to go to probably a couple different stores.
right,
And so your only choice, a lot of the times, and especially I can just speak as a mother, your kid comes home and is like, oh, hey, mom, I need this thing by Monday. And
Mhm.
it's like
right,
Friday. And you're like, when am I supposed to go do that? Like, when do I mean, and so
yeah,
it's this whole thing where they really do have a monopoly on stuff. And, it's convenient and it's just really difficult to get away from Amazon anymore. And I try to, I think we all do, but Christ, you guys, they have too much power and control. And that's the problem. And what Krish was talking about earlier, the way that they sell our data to
yeah.
other companies should really terrify everybody. That's not okay.
Oh,
That is not okay.
absolutely.
Do you really want like these megalomaniacal like psychopaths? You really want them knowing literally everything about you? I don't. I'm good on all
Yeah,
that.
it's crazy. It's just one of those things where like I was like they people were like mad at me that I was saying this sort of stuff and they kind of but now look at it, right? Like YouTube is basically controlling who gets to see certain information and who doesn't. And
And
like what
what
happened
information they're shown.
right. And what happened with my channel is to go back to that Time article where they basically showed like the Democratic Party's version of Cambridge Analytica. I posted this video back in January, and the video's title was "Did Time Magazine confirm election fraud?" Right? It was a question, and like I didn't make any bold statements or anything because I was still kind of being cautious and about not like over extremely title.
Self-censoring.
Yeah, which sucks, and I don't want to
I
do it.
know.
And like Lee Campus talked about it a bunch, but like the title of his videos have to be somewhat vague, but not vague enough that it'll get flagged by the community standards and be like, oh, you're trying to scam people with your
And
title
you
and
just
try to
have
get
to watch
clicks.
which words you use.
Exactly. So now, based on the strikes that I've received, so this is the second strike. I got a warning. They took down one of the video. They took down that live stream, so that live stream is only available on Rockfin. And then they gave me my first strike when I did a video, and that video was a little boldly titled "Proof that America is not a democracy," which
That's
uh,
Oh
not
wow,
that
you
bold.
really went off
It's
the
so
really not
rails
that.
I
there.
know I went crazy with it, where I
Yeah,
where I
where was your
basically
head at?
talked about what we learn
I can't
in
believe we
first
have a
grade
YouTube
social
channel.
studies. I know. What a bold title. Like, that thing that they teach you in school? Like, I basically said that and then I proved, well, the whole video just talks about how we're an oligarchy and proves it. Like, that's basically what
It's
what the
really
point of
not
the video was.
debatable at this point.
It's not. And
It's really
so
not.
so that video gets taken down. I mean, that I appealed it. The appeal got rejected in 45 minutes, something like that.
You actually got a response.
No, no, no. They just send an email saying we're rejecting your appeal.
Like a
They don't.
boilerplate.
There's like no human beings. But that was the thing is like that's how I knew there's no real person looking at these videos.
Mhm.
Is there's no way if you are trying to look for certain, key phrases, keywords, that sort of stuff in the video that a person can look through like a 20-minute video and take notes and evaluate what like that takes way more than 45 minutes. It probably has to go through, because I've worked in a corporation before. Like, I know how many fucking channels it has to go through before it gets the seal of approval. That shit does not happen in 45 minutes. So with this video, again, this is a video that's 2 months old. It's been out there for 2 months. It's like people have watched it over the course of the 2 months, but all of a sudden, my channel starts getting more views. Over the course of the last 2-3 weeks, I've gained like 20 some odd subscribers, which for my channel is awesome. And then they throttle it by basically giving me the strike, so I can't live stream, I can't put content up. My videos don't get shown in the as recommended videos. They don't pop up as, like if somebody watches a Facts on the Ground video, the next video is not going to be one of my videos or one of Graham Elwood's or Ron Placone's or Fiorella's or whoever's videos, right? So so all of that's been taken away from my channel. So for the next 2 weeks, I can't live stream, upload, or post anything. So people just think that my channel is inactive. All of a sudden, my channel went inactive, and that can lose me subscribers. So if I was close to getting monetization on my channel, I can't do that anymore. I can't regain subscribers for my channel because they're probably not looking at my channel as much. So yeah, and so I posted this thing up because I posted this big long thing about like how and this was just like a fire and fury post about waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning and finding out that my channel's been shut down for 2 weeks because of a bullshit strike, and I appealed it, and I basically pointed out there is nothing that goes against your community guidelines. Like what you've put up, I'm not scamming anybody, I'm not spamming anybody, and these are not deceptive practices because I'm literally reading a Time magazine article. And that's exactly what I was doing. I'm literally reading the article, right? Like I read portions of the paragraph where they call what happened with the AFL-CIO advisor a conspiracy. I'm not the one.
They called it a cabal. There was like a cabal. Like that's a thing that they said in the article, but you're the asshole,
But so I'm the one that gets flagged. So I pointed out, I was like, hey, Time magazine is going against your community standards, not me. And so I made this post on social media, and I talked about it on my stream on Friday on my channel because I was like, it's just too ridiculous. It just showed this glaring media illiteracy problem that I think we have in the United States, where people kind of are okay with going with the corporate narrative, where people think that, like CNN is honest journalism and MSNBC is they're really digging into the deep stuff here, or NPR is. And, I was at that point, too, when I was like 19, 20 years old. But the more I started reading alternative stuff, and really like Lee Camp is probably the first person that like kind of veered me further away from that kind of stuff, that kind of journalism to more independent journalism and to more hard hitting journalists like Glenn Greenwald and the Gray Zone and things like that. But, I was like in college and I was like, MSNBC is good people. They seem to be all right. NPR seems to be pretty cool. But, what people don't know, and I remember like even my sister was like, this is nuts. But I pointed out this ad that NPR ran in like the late 90s, and it was an ad for Boeing. And and I was like, yeah, that's a weapons contractor. That also sometimes makes planes that crash. Like,
yeah.
I also love it when they do, like when they have a segment and they like close out to commercial and it'll say like this segment brought to you by Boeing or brought to you by whatever, and you're just like, because I don't watch a lot of, actually I watch zero mainstream media, but I always see like the clips other people show where they do that, and it's really funny. Like, and that's just a thing that people are like, yeah, that's normal. That's normal. Defense contractors should totally be sponsoring our news.
They do it. They do it in that hushed, peaceful NPR voice. Like, this is Fresh Air with Terry Gross. The last segment was brought to you by Lockheed. Bomb back better.
Yeah, it's good. Crazy. Like Lockheed Martin is also funded. Like but that's why they supported the Iraq War, and a lot of people forget that, and a lot of people because they think that they're these nice.
That's what's so frustrating, though. It's not like we don't know why that's happening. If you are like a logical thinking human being, you can very clearly see that that's bad. We shouldn't be doing that. There should not be defense contractors sponsoring our news media. That should not be happening ever in the history of ever. And so that's a really weird thing that like we just accept as a society. That's no. Like, can you imagine if we actually had a news media that was what a news media should be? How amazing that would be. How much of the conspiracy theory aspect of life would completely disappear, because once you have trust in the fact that you're getting legitimate information on a subject, you don't have to go searching for other answers. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, if our news media just told us the truth and they were like, hey, this is what's happening, this country's doing this to this country, and we're fucking it up because we're getting too involved, or whatever it is, like, just try to lay out the facts. That would be amazing. It would be so awesome. That's not how life works, though. They're all corporately owned and corrupt, and it's propaganda. It's state-run propaganda, because remember, corporations also own our government. So that really is state-run propaganda, essentially. That's what it boils down to.
I think there is some utility in, I hate to say consuming, but consuming some mainstream media
I can't.
In the context of knowing your enemies and doing a side-by-side comparison.
Like clips to other people, but I can't watch like a whole. There's no way I could watch like an hour. I would.
No.
Oh my god.
I can't watch like a full program.
Just pick any CNN article.
Articles I can do.
Which usually
articles I can do.
Which their articles now usually require 3 to 4 people to write.
I'm gonna let my
for some reason.
Because he's plugging by the door.
Oh. Hi, kitty. Milo, right? Milo, I think it's Milo. Just turned like 11, I think, his cat. He posted something about it on Twitter, I think. That's funny.
He's like, shit, I've heard you talk about this like 100 times, bro. I get it.
It's Milo, right? Milo, is it
yeah.
your cat's name?
Yeah. He's in a mood. He just turned 9 on Friday, which is very exciting.
Okay, 9.
So
I was just telling Dusty that he had a birthday.
Yeah, which is exciting.
I saw you tweet about it or something.
We gave him like treats, and he was awesome. But today, holy shit, man! Like now he's like, oh, I'm gonna get treats all the time, right? I'm gonna get soft food every day now. And I'm like, no, you're not. Just you eat the food we gave you. Just eat the food. And he's like, no, but what about that soft food though?
But you're also like imposing the ability for him to differentiate between the fact that yesterday was his birthday, and he just doesn't understand that yesterday was his birthday. He just wants the good food.
I know. When will cats learn how to speak English? That's what I want. Right. Where's the political candidate that's going to teach cats English? That's right. That's the hill I'm willing.
Or like get us the technology, like the translation. Get them for cats.
Universal translator for
I need to learn how to speak meow.
Yeah, why does the cat have to learn English, Krish? Why can't you learn cat?
America, that's why.
Yeah. He has to. Milo has to learn to speak American.
The cat needs to learn how to speak American. That's it. None of this Cockney British accent bullshit.
I wouldn't mind having a little British cat. Are you kidding? That'd be adorable.
I would love it too. I feel like this cat's probably more.
I would love that shit. Bring that on. Somebody bring that on. I love a little British cat. Dang, man.
Yeah, he's
what I was
a goofy kid.
I was gonna say about CNN, or what I was saying about CNN, just real quickly, is that if you read any one of their articles that has to do with foreign policy or national security, just reading it alone is enough to see how much it's been
distorted,
manipulated, and propagandized,
manufactured.
But when you put it side by side with, say, a similar story from The Gray Zone or Behind the Headlines, which is Dan Cohen's outlet.
Shout out to Dan.
Yeah, and the differences aren't just stark; they're scary, because I still have this article up from a few weeks ago about the supposed biggest breach of American elections by Russia in the history of the United States.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And
dun dun dun.
you read the piece and it's all vague speculation, and American officials said, anonymous sources tell us,
Mm-hmm.
experts say, and I haven't heard anything about that since then. So I guess the breach is over. I don't know.
They closed it. They
Right?
closed the bridge.
No, they keep switching. They keep changing their mind about it. Like they simultaneously want to tell you that this was the safest election in the history of Everdom, and Joe Biden is without a doubt the president. And if you question it, you are anti-American and you're
But
a
that's the
QAnon.
narrative.
And then they also want you to think that our elections are very fragile, and there are a lot of outside influences, which they're right. Russia probably does try to interfere in our elections, and so does China, and so does
But we
a
do it to all of
litany of
them.
other countries.
Right. Right.
All countries do that to each other. We do that most of all. Like we do
Yeah.
that to literally everybody,
But it's
all
all
of the people,
countries.
like
It's
all of the people.
countries that have a
We really.
major it's these countries that have these major intelligence agencies that operate in tandem with the government, right? So like the FBI is essentially here to fuck with anything local that talks about community and solidarity with each other. So they go and like Food Not Bombs, right? They like call them a
Mhm.
domestic terror group for feeding homeless people. And I talked about this on my show.
And they arrest somebody like Keith
Yeah,
McHenry
right,
4 billion
feeding people.
times.
Because they're
Yeah.
like, oh, but you're gonna make people poop by giving them food, and it's just like, yeah. So you admit everybody
People gotta
poops,
poop, dude.
and maybe we should build toilets for the homeless, but
You're
Or
forcing people
maybe
to
we
eat
could find
vegan.
houses. Maybe we should find houses for the homeless. Maybe we could
yeah,
do that because, it's the
plenty
United
of
States of
houses.
America in the year 2021 and we still can't figure out homelessness. Come the fuck
Right,
on. I'm so done
Yeah.
with that shit. Like I keep
right.
saying it. Like that's been my thing recently. I've had this like amazing thing where I'm just really annoyed at the fact that it's America, the United States of America in the year 2021 and we can't like function.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know it's wild, but
It's
my point is,
unbelievably embarrassing. Americans should be embarrassed that you're
oh,
allowing
for sure,
this and that
yeah,
it's being allowed to continue and that we can't get people health care and we can't make sure that somebody has a roof over their head and we can't make sure that, our roads are safe. And like
yes,
my roads are filled with potholes right now, fam.
Incrementalism.
I know, right? Lesser of two evils. Come on. No,
but
I'm so done with that shit. But
that's the
I
crazy
just keep
part.
saying it over and over again. It's the United States of
But,
America in the year 2021.
yeah,
And
I
we don't
mean,
have shit.
if you want to talk about like oh, that's a secure election, but it's the most fragile election of all time. It's like any country with an intelligence agency interferes in other countries'
Mm-hmm.
elections. That's
Tries
what they
to,
do. That's what
yes.
the intelligence wars are all about, right? It's about getting the upper hand on everybody else, and you can't trust anybody. Like, what a paranoid way to live your life.
No,
What a
it's
way
not
to
even just
you can't.
paranoid. It's so infantile.
It is.
It's
It's just
so childish.
it's
Like there's a bunch
incredibly
of
sad.
grown babies running things.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's just like it's so
Oh,
sad that
he
you
was
live your
mean to
life
me.
like
Now we got to blow up his country. Like,
right. It's
grow
like
up.
what's his name? Mike Pompeo. I guarantee you, Pompeo does not
Oh,
have a friend in the world because
giant
how
man
could you?
baby.
If you fucking have that kind of mentality, if you have the mentality that everybody is your enemy and I must stay one step ahead of everybody, what's this person? How can you actually rationally have friends that you trust, that you keep close to you? You can't.
Mhm.
You just can't. And this
Well,
is
he's
what
a
the United
sociopath,
States
so
wants to
there's that.
run. Yeah, I
Go ahead.
mean, this is how the United States wants to run itself is through these intelligence agencies, and that's why they tell you like, oh, anybody that says anything about our elections is a foreign actor or they're they're compromising democracy or what have you. Where like this article points that out and it uses words like conspiracy and cabal and that's the thing is like so I posted this thing and I have people coming out and saying, well, look at your title, it's clickbait, you're clickbaiting, of course this is deceptive practices and spam. And it's like, no, it's not.
No.
The point of the article is to get you comfortable with the fact that there is a whole
They
series of
saved
background
democracy.
operations. Yeah,
No,
like this
wait. They fortified. That's what it
fortified
is.
democracy.
Fortified. They
Yeah,
fortified the
that's what it's called.
election. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
But it's like, but shouldn't the election already be fortified? And what are we doing it to fortify it from corporate interests? What are we doing
Right.
it to fortify from fucking Republicans
And
at
that
every general
fortification should be
election?
a public process, and the
Yes.
people should be aware of what's happening, and they should be told how our elections are being strengthened to ensure that they cannot be rigged to the best of our ability. Again, United States of America in the year 2021, and we can't run an election, like a legit election.
Right.
Come on, that's
But
stupid. Stop
we're gonna say
accepting that.
Venezuela is bad though. Venezuela is the
Right.
problem where international election observers
Although
have
they
gone to
consistently have
Venezuela.
some of the highest ranked elections in terms of
Yes.
legitimacy, and ours are consistently ranked among the worst. But yeah,
Yeah.
Venezuela's a problem.
I believe the official international election observer statement about elections in America is just a picture of a garbage can on fire. Like that's the official statement.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
essentially,
that's what it is.
our elections are a joke, and
Maybe a
anyone who says that
dumpster.
they're not
A big
is a
dumpster
fool.
fire. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
so tired of people pretending that our elections are. I mean, when we saw, and I mean, I'm not going to call anybody out because they're people that I genuinely do like, but there were people who I actually respect who were mocking the idea that maybe our elections weren't secure, and not because we thought that or that anybody thought that Trump won or that it was rigged against Trump in any way, but the idea that our elections are legitimate ever, regardless of like what the conspiracy theory for that cycle happens to be, our elections are never secure.
No.
That's not a
Yeah,
thing that
and
happens.
They
in,
lack
in the
major
in the run up to
integrity.
these past elections, Max Blumenthal tweeted out a great point. Why don't we bring in independent election observers at election sites?
And there shouldn't be proprietary software that we can't look at, and
because it was at a point when everybody was saying how fragile the process was and was going to be, and he tweeted, "There's an easy way to solve this. It's what other countries do. Why can't we do it?" But of course, American exceptionalism. Oh, we don't need election monitors.
Yeah, because we nailed it.
And yeah,
We
we're
only
doing
got a demagogue
such
in
a great
office
job.
for 4 years
You
because of our
guys,
election process.
USA, USA, USA.
Well, I mean, even
Yeah.
India, I pointed this out, and I'm not a fan of Modi at all, but one of the major things that was happening when I was over there in 2019, early 2019, was and this was kind of a BJ. This is very similar to how they were kind of promoting the mail-in ballots of like, oh, everybody should register to vote and get your mail-in ballots and so on and so forth. The BJP was basically saying, well, we want everybody's voice to count because there's a lot of rural communities that don't come out to vote because they don't have a polling station next to their place. They have to get on a bus and they have to, drive 100 kilometers to the closest city and then find a polling station there and then find lodging for a night. And then, so it's just like, it's impossible for these rural communities to do it. So his plan was a polling station 1 kilometer from every known address. Right. And people within his own party were criticizing him and making fun of him because they found out that there was some woman living out, she was like this elderly lady in her 60s or 70s, and she was living out in the country in this rural area, and she was like living on this farm or something. And they were like, well, there's nobody around her for a couple kilometers. You want to put a polling station 1 kilometer away from this house? That's so crazy. What a misuse of our resources. And he was like, yes, she's old. She also has the right to vote. And why aren't we making it easier? And this is coming from the conservative, kind of neocon prime minister of India now, is still trying to get everybody to vote. Whereas in America, we have both parties actively trying to fuck with the elections. And
actively trying to pretend like they're not doing it. It's the other guys.
Right.
It drives me crazy.
With what did they do in a couple years ago? It was called Crosscheck, Interstate Crosscheck, where they were basically taking people's last names. If the last name and the first name were similar in 2 different states, they were ousting them. That those people's votes don't count. And who it was affecting a lot was specifically Latino voters, right? Latino voters that, you might have 2 Albert Rodriguez, one in North Carolina, one in, Connecticut, but they would both be taken off the rolls. Well, this time around, they basically did the same thing in Georgia, where 200,000 people were kicked off the rolls because they moved. That's the only thing. And Georgia's not the only state that did this. My state had this. This became like national, or not national news, but this became like statewide news that every local news agency was covering, where they were talking about how a bunch of people weren't getting their mail-in ballots and what's going on. And then they blamed the post office because they found one fucking postal worker that was dumping people's mails, right? And then they were like, oh, he's a Trump supporter and all this other crap. But really, he was just a pissed off postal worker because he wasn't getting hazard pay. And, you know, people weren't treating him properly, which you fucking should. And also, this is not the post office's fault because the post office has been fucked over by both parties time and time again because it's actually an organization that is meant to help people communicate with each other, that is actually meant to help the average working class people. So again, so they scapegoated the post office by this, but really it was the election officials that weren't updating the addresses of people on their rolls, that weren't looking at up-to-date voter registration. And this happened state after state after state, but you can't talk about it because the Democrats want you to think that everything is hunky-dory with our elections. And so that's what happened with Consortium News. They had Greg Palast on, and they did a live stream with him where Palast was on the ground in Georgia, witnessing all of this and witnessing people getting thrown off the rolls and talking about this sort of stuff. And their live stream gets deleted and they get a strike put on their channel for, you know, deceptive practices about the election. It's like, this is a literal journalist talking about this. So, you know, when people look at what happened with me, they go, oh, well, he's just a comedian. Maybe he said something over the top or what have you, right? Even though I really didn't. I read an article and made fun of Time Magazine, which everybody should make fun of Time Magazine. But now it's like there is a legitimate journalist organization that got a strike on YouTube and couldn't post anything because they did their jobs, right? The same thing happened with Kit over at Hardlands Media. Their video was titled, Joe Biden is the president, and they still got a flag. And fortunately, they got theirs removed because, again, they didn't do anything wrong. They did their job as journalists, right? That's what they're supposed to do. But all they called out for was election integrity, which we desperately need in this country. We need election integrity, election transparency in this country. It should who you vote for is private, but everything else should be publicly verified. And the way Venezuela does it is incredible. You bring one piece of identification. They check to make sure that you are registered. If you are not, they can register you on the spot to make sure that, you know, and put you in the system so then you can go cast your vote. You go in, you cast your vote on an electronic machine. That electronic machine gives you a receipt confirming who you voted for. You take that receipt over to someone at the exit polls. They note down who you voted for on a paper ballot that then gets into a lockbox and then counted by, and all of this stuff is observed. So there's steps after steps after steps to make sure that this is a tight.
We are a smart species, you guys. Like, we figured out how to do a lot of really incredible things. Like, have you seen the little like robots that can perform super difficult surgeries or whatever?
Yeah.
We can't figure out how to run an election. That's ridiculous. And the idea that anybody believes that this is the best that the system can be, or that isn't talking about it in a way that should make us want to improve such an easily improvable system. Like Krish just said, that, I mean, what Venezuela does isn't perfect. There's no system that's ever going to be 100% perfect.
Yeah.
But that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And it's,
Better
I
than
mean,
what we
just
have.
miles better than anything we're doing, you know? So the fact that we're not taking active, and that's by design. They want you to think that this is the best that we can do. Our elections are fine. Like, we're the United States. How dare you question our elections?
Exactly.
And they don't want people to like talk about it. And that's why people like the Convo Couch get demonetized, because they talk about election integrity in a real way. They go to elections and observe them, and they go to meetings and sit through like 8-hour-long meetings to like figure out all the, I mean, those are people who are genuinely looking into the election system in a real way. And that's why those people get demonetized. And that's why, you know, that's why the censorship around any issue is increasing. They're trying to silence literally any dissent whatsoever. Anything outside the approved narrative will be squashed. It is being squashed.
but especially alternative media that challenges the Clinton Obama status quo, which is under which the
Well, it's really the
intelligence
Reagan status
security
quo.
state,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
that
under which the Reagan, under which the intelligence and national security states have been able to thrive. Those were their halcyon days under Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, and Trump. I think it goes without having to describe, came in and shook that all up.
a little bit,
Yeah.
Demoted
He's an
demoted
asshole,
John
but he did.
Well,
demoted
he just revealed all of it. He just started saying shit that he wasn't really supposed to. His whole presidency was saying the quiet part
people
out
get
loud.
so mad when you say that though, because I cannot stand Donald Trump. He's a piece of shit of like the highest order. But the fact that he came in and was like, we're gonna go take their oil, I'm okay with that. He told some truth. That's truth. And he's too dumb to know when to shut up. So I'll take that silver lining. Fuck off if you get mad about it. That's a silver lining. He exposed a lot of the shit that, needs to be exposed. And I'll be okay with that. I'm good with that.
Part of it for him too is just like he knows if he just says these things as blatantly as he does, like it's just gonna get him more press anyway. So
yes, and he's a showman, and he likes a reaction. He likes those kind of like when everybody kind of takes a breath in the room.
Shit, yeah,
it's like an audible, like, oh my god, did you say that? And that happened quite a few times when he would say stuff. People in the room would be like, what did he just say? Like, yeah, I mean, but that's so I think some of it was probably just being a showman, but I also just think he was too dumb to know when to shut the fuck up.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
he has no gift for subtlety. There's like no gift for subtlety whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
that's his whole career. That's his whole career. And that's why
I think somebody called him, it might have been Bernie actually. No, it might have been Obama actually, which I hate to give any props to Obama, but somebody called him a carnival barker. That's very accurate. He is kind of a carnival barker. Like that's Donald Trump. You know?
Lee calls him a huckster.
Yeah.
Lee Camp calls him a huckster, I think, in one of his albums. And I think, Carnival Barker Huckster is just like,
and he's a clown. It's
Obama's just like, I guess Obama would be a carnival pontificator.
I don't fuck that guy. Oh, he makes my skin crawl. I'm not even lying. He makes my skin crawl. He's so creepy.
He's the guy that the rigged machines that they have. He's the one that would give you like a very flowery explanation of how this works and how it's the right thing. It's like, and people would be like, "Wow, this very attractive guy must be right. Maybe I will
charming
dollars into and try to put square pegs into round holes. It seems like it'll work." That's who Obama was. But again, it's like nobody pays attention, and the reason why they kind of go along with this narrative is because Time magazine was talking about it, and they put their value into Time magazine. And Steve Poikonen from Solo Newsday is so good about
Steve.
Actually. Yeah, I love Steve. Time magazine is funded by so and so who's connected to this. He's so good at doing that.
Yeah,
and that's the thing is like nobody
he hangs out with Whitney Webb. I think that is rubbing off on him.
Yeah.
Because she's like the connection maker. I don't even know how she keeps all that stuff there. Like all that like web of connection. Like she knows all, like it's like acronym soup. And then she knows how they're all like this person's CEO was married to this company's secretary and this blah. They sat on this board with their son and like blah, 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 like all these. And I'm like, what is happening?
Max is the same way.
Out, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Max is the same
really
way.
Overwhelmed.
Max is the same way, especially when it comes to Middle Eastern foreign policy. He'll and Israeli officials. I'm like, how do you keep all these names straight and who's who? Like I'm familiar with them, but he's got them on lock. So
But that's the thing is they just don't know.
Like steel traps.
They don't know, and they're not willing to. Like I pointed out when a buddy of mine said something about NPR, and I corrected him, and then he was like, "Oh, well, aren't our elections in trouble?" and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Not really." And I kind of gave him, this Gray Zone article that basically talks about like debunking Russiagate. And then I gave him Aaron Mate's Nation article, which I think is kind of like the quintessential debunking of all things Russiagate. And somebody came into his comments who was like, "Oh, this is funded by Venezuelan something about Venezuelan communists or something like that." Basically saying like nothing Gray Zone says matters because they've talked about Venezuela, which means that they're connected with the corrupt Venezuelan government, so you can't trust anything that they're saying.
Oh.
And I was like, what are
Oh.
you talking about?
Okay, so
I
wait,
got
then but Time Magazine's associated with the United States government. So I mean, that's
exactly.
like the hypocrisy surrounding that way of thinking is really frustrating for me because
Absolutely.
people will say like, "Oh yeah, RT is funded by the Russian government." Oh, okay, well CNN is funded by the United States government because
So is
again,
NPR.
corporations
So
own our
it's yeah,
government and they also
yeah,
sponsor our news media. So that is
yeah,
really state-run propaganda. Call it what it
yeah.
is, and but
Well,
that's different.
it's
It's
like you
different,
have people on CNN that are just like Tulsi Gabbard's a Russian agent.
right?
What? Like even the
And
good,
that and
even the
nobody
talking heads were like,
apologized for
what?
that shit. Nobody apologized for that shit. Nobody still to this day. They called an active serving member of the military, which that was a huge part of the issue that I had with Tulsi. But they called her a Russian and nobody has apologized. And then they want to say that we support the troops.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I don't know if you
right.
remember. I think it was either on CNN or MSNBC, but former director of NSA director James Clapper, who lied to
Ugh.
Congress, he got Trump had him kicked down to one of these commentator jobs, and I don't even
Which
know
the
if they,
fact that he's a commentator on news.
Right.
yeah, or
Well,
a consultant or whatever you want to call it, but he he said on this show just flat out in the heat of Russiagate hysteria, at the height of Russiagate hysteria, that he thinks Russians are genetically predisposed to
mhm.
mendacity and sabotage. Like he said this with a
That's
straight
the
face.
one of the grossest things. I mean, really. It's
What?
really one of the grossest things I've heard. Like that's so like not xenophobic.
It's
That's
it's kind of some shit that you would hear from like a really good piece of political satire, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it sounds like. And I've
like that's
said
a
this
character that
for
Mike
years.
McRae came up with.
Yeah, like this is like I've been saying this for 4 years. I think one of the worst things the Trump administration did is that it killed satire.
Yes.
Because
A little
everything that would
bit.
have been satirical, he just fucking did it. And it's just like, come on, man.
And it
Like, you
kind
know
of
how
annoys me
crazy
too
you
a
have
little
to get
bit.
there?
Like I'm mad at Trump for this because the Onion was like really reaching their prime like right
Right.
as he took office and then it was like you can't what are you going to come up with?
Right, exactly.
Donald
Yeah.
Trump is
Like,
president. Donald Trump is president. What are you
I
going
know.
what can you
I know.
possibly say? You
But
know?
speaking about
Oh,
lying to Congress, I Richard Metters just released a video a couple weeks ago about the 18th year anniversary of the
yeah,
Iraq War.
Richie.
And yeah, and he itemizes just how much Colin Powell lied to Congress
Hmm.
in
Mhm.
order to get people and like and I think he brought up Scott Ritter because I think he just did an interview for Press TV with Scott Ritter, who is the UN what was his official title?
He
He
was
was
a weapons inspector.
weapons inspector,
Yeah.
yes. And Joe Biden, like, man, I remember Aaron Mate interviewed him and played those clips, and it is fucking gross to hear
Mhm.
Biden talking to this official. This dude, his job is to find weapons of mass destruction, or people are like, violating treaties and so on and so forth. And he was like, we didn't find anything there. And he goes, oh, so you know, huh? Oh, so am I
Yeah,
supposed to believe you over the other? And it was just like, this guy is an expert. Like he's an expert that's not on your fucking payroll.
Well, and then you have George W. Bush being like, they got to be around here somewhere, right? Like making jokes at the I mean, I know that joking about weapons of mass destruction and starting an illegal war is just like it's so funny. Chris, you should add that to your
Crazy, I
routine.
know.
Like it's so funny to joke about starting
But
an
there,
illegal war when you're the president.
well,
but
I
there it is,
mean,
Colin
right? How much did
Colin
the media
Powell.
lie for Bush though? How
huh?
much should people not fucking listen to independent media at that
Uh,
point when everybody was like, I don't think this is fucking right. Like this seems
but
real
you would
fucked up.
think that like wouldn't we learn a lesson? Like you would think that people who lived through that would now be able to recognize the bullshit. And like I say it all the time, how many times does your government get to lie to you before your sense of skepticism kicks in? How many
Depends on how much you
times?
trust their media. If you
Right.
trust the government-run media like CNN or MSNBC, Fox News, whatever, I think Graham does the something of propaganda. Like it's who gets the narratives first, and then how they distribute it to other corporate media or outlets and
Mhm.
stuff. But like if you trust them, right, then of course they're going to keep doing it to you, because
Right.
you keep giving in to trusting their media sources. And Jesse, you brought this up, is yes, you should probably to some degree pay attention to what corporate media says. It's important to know what the state narrative is, so
Mhm.
you know how to counter it, right? And I'm like Misty, I can't fucking watch an
Uh-uh.
entire show. I think my head would
No.
explode,
Like
my eyes
5
would start.
minutes in,
Yeah, and
done.
Yeah,
I'm not saying to support it. Like I keep getting badgered by the New York Times for the $1 a week subscription. I'm not going to give them any money. I'll
Right.
stay behind the paywall and read my 3 free articles. But
Right.
no,
but see, but you know what the thing is like like Kim Iverson talks about this on her show, where she's like, I'm subscribed to all these things because I have to be. Like,
Right.
I need to know what they're saying. But
right.
I'm like you.
That's
I'm like, I can't throw money at this
No.
corporation that's already being funded by, a bunch of other fucking millionaires and billionaires, a bunch of other rich liberals across the country. You don't need my fucking money. You
I
just,
don't really care what they're saying. I just want to put out the alternative. Like I don't care what they're saying. Like I would just rather go try to find the truth to the best of my ability and talk to people who are smarter than me and that understand the situations of things that we are discussing on this show. I would much rather do that than worry about what the New York
yeah.
Times is talking about.
Oh,
I don't give
yeah.
a fuck. I just
That's,
want the truth. So whatever they're saying, they can say. I mean, I do to a certain degree. Like you guys said, it's important to
yeah.
know kind of what your
because
enemy is thinking. So like, yeah, I'll read
they're
my three
setting the
free
overall
articles.
narrative too, though. They're
Right.
setting the overall
But
narrative, and
yeah, but
It's
that's
what
how we
people are
we
going to
change
parrot
it by
Twitter.
focusing on reality and trying to push that as much as we can. We can't like just for me, I just can't I don't care that much. I'd rather just go try to find the truth
Oh,
to the best of
100%.
my ability and hope that everybody else is trying to do that too.
It's
And
so interesting because like what I've been doing recently is I've noticed the way that George Floyd's case is being covered by somebody like the World Socialist website versus Lester Holt on NBC, right?
right.
And the only reason I watch Lester Holt
Lester
is,
Holt.
yeah, he's
He's
what a
funny.
oh man, it's painstaking to watch it, but I watch an 85-year-old
such
lady
a
in the game.
working man's
That's what
name.
she wants. Lester Holt? Yeah, it does sound like he works in the mills, doesn't it? Like he's wearing
Yeah.
overalls with no shirt underneath it.
Yes.
Uh, but but like so I was watching how he covered the first 2 days of the trial versus what World Socialist website got. And what World Socialist website pointed out was, exactly how Chauvin's defense attorney was talking to witnesses and the questions that they would ask. And a lot of the questions that Chauvin's attorney was bringing up were like classic gaslighting, right?
Right.
Where they wanted him, like they were basically he was trying to get the witnesses to question themselves.
Oh
And
yeah, did you
bring
the
up,
guy that there was one guy that he was trying to paint him as like an angry black man essentially.
yes,
And that
because
guy
he's
is
the
my
one that took the
fucking
video.
hero. That dude, if you haven't seen that video, Justy, you should go watch it cuz that dude kept his composure sitting in that courtroom and he pushed right back at him and he said, "Nah, you can't paint me to be black or
Yep,
to
you
be
can't make me
angry.
be an
You
angry
can't
black
make
man.
me you can't yeah, you're not going to distort like make me out to be angry. I was in my head. Like I know what I saw. You
Well, and
can't
then
Right.
he
distort
was
shit."
was claiming
And
that
I
like
wanted to punch that attorney in the fucking
oh
face.
he
His
has he
smug
has
little smile and
yeah
oh god, what a douchebag.
he
Ugh.
has
Sorry.
very very punchable face.
Yes.
Like it
How is there even a trial for this guy? I understand the justice
It's
system has to
yeah.
go
right.
through its
That,
machinations, but
that's it.
it's caught on video and he
Yeah,
smiles at the camera when he's done. He
But
murdered
they
there's a
George
lot. There's
Floyd.
still he still has a defense. I mean, they're gonna paint it out like
they're claiming
that
drugs
he was on
and
drugs and that so it wasn't the knee on the neck that killed him, it was the drugs in his system that killed him, and so he can't be held responsible for murder, and they're going to try to paint it as justifiable, or they're going to there's a million
yeah.
defenses and he's entitled
So
to one.
so that's kind of how NBC plays it out. Like NBC does not put it on Chauvin. In fact, in a lot of the reporting, they don't even mention that Chauvin's in the room. Like, they don't mention him at all. They mention the witnesses, and they talk about like. They talked about that guy, Donald Williams, I believe his name is, and he talked
He's
about
hot.
how there was a what was it an altercation, like they presented as an altercation in court between these two things. And if you watch the video, which there's plenty of video to go and watch this guy's testimony, he keeps calm and composure, and he says, "You're not going to paint me as a black man." Now, this is something that when it comes to the legal system and black people on trial, they do that in order to manipulate the jury, right? They use racist stereotypes
It's gaslighting.
to manipulate the jury. So they gaslight the jury in that way. But I don't think that's working, and it was frustrating him. So he brought up what what he said on camera, which he was like, did you call him
a pussy? A pussy like, bitch motherfucker or something. And I'm like, this is funny. Like, this lawyer's in the courtroom, and the guy's like, yes, I did. Yes, or no, he kept saying, "Is that what you heard?
Is it in the video?
Is that what you heard on the tape?" And that's what I said.
That's what I said. Yeah, and I was like, "That's incredible."
I loved him so much. God damn it, he was good.
So
let's focus on the bystander's rage instead of the murder that's happening.
Exactly.
Okay, listen, if I'm standing in front of a murder going on in front of me, and I know I can't do anything about it because the person committing the murder is a cop and he'll shoot me, I'm gonna be upset too. I'm gonna be a little angry about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna feel frustration. I'm going to yell.
There was no violence
just
from
they're yelling at him, like trying to appeal to his actual like sense of humanity, which obviously didn't work.
So they keep talking about like, and then Lester Holt brings up the point where they asked him, could you feel like you could have done more? And he was like, if I could have, I would have, And then they bring up another 18-year-old girl, right? And they bring up this 18-year-old girl that saw what was going on, but then her friend like just pulled her into the store because they didn't want to get involved, and she feels guilty. So the narrative for this 18-year-old girl on NBC became all about her guilt, all about her wanting to do more. Then there was another testimony about this older black man that was trying to talk to George Floyd to be like, hey man, just go in the car. And, you could see it in this video, like he's clearly having a panic attack. He is having a panic. This is not a drug-induced thing. I've had panic attacks like this before. I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like. Your fucking chest feels like it's caving in. Yeah. Like this is not drug related. This is a fucking panic attack.
It feels like there's a cement block on your chest.
Yeah.
You can't breathe. Yeah.
He doesn't need to be in handcuffs. You could have very easily pulled him out of the car and sat him on the side of the curb and tried
just
to
let him calm down.
Right. Yeah. But they didn't, right? So that the older black man now feels very responsible, and he wishes that he could have done more because, so the narrative became, well, look, all of these bystanders could have done more. That's the narrative presented to the mainstream audience, the people that listen to the corporate media. The narrative is, well, the bystanders could have done more. Look, they say they feel guilty. Look, they feel like they've been traumatized by what they view. They should have done more. They could have done more.
What are they supposed to do?
Right.
But
this is an armed cop.
Why do they feel that? They feel like they could have done more because
nobody could have done more unless you wanted to die.
Right.
Unless you wanted to die.
Cops with guns. It's dudes with guns. Like, what are they gonna do, right?
Dudes with guns who are known for killing people. Like, these are cops. That's what they do.
The portion of the testimony that is skipped is the 18-year-old girl says the only violence I witnessed that day was from Officer Chauvin. That part is not mentioned on NBC. They ignore that. They focus on the fact that she says she feels guilty about not doing more. So they place the onus on her. So the media is kind of twisting it so that you don't look at Derek Chauvin, you look at the bystanders and say, well, why didn't the bystanders do more? Same thing with this older black man. This older black man's rationale was, well, look, if they have you in handcuffs, that's it. You're going to jail. So what's the point of resisting? I've had experience with this, so I was trying to advise George Floyd to do the same thing, right? So, but they don't bring that up. They don't bring up the fact that this older black man has had experience with police brutality and didn't want to see another black man get killed. But unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. So again, the onus goes on, well, why didn't you do more? No, what were they supposed to do? Also, maybe the narrative shouldn't be, well, the bystanders should have done more. Maybe the narrative should be, maybe you shouldn't fucking be a 200-pound man and sit on somebody's neck. And even if they
Yeah.
ignorance of like, well, I didn't know he was gonna die. How? You can't be that fucking ignorant.
It doesn't matter that there's no reason for that
Okay.
level
It was
of
almost nine
physicality.
minutes. It was almost 9 minutes. That's a
There's
long
no
time.
reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so they won't
There's
bring so
no reason for that level of physicality ever.
so they haven't
Ever.
brought
Like,
up
I mean,
any of the paramedics on corporate media either. I didn't hear anything about what the paramedics and the firefighters that or the EMT and the firefighter said. One of them said that they literally had to shove Derek Chauvin off of George Floyd in order to get him any sort of medical attention. The cops blocked the EMTs from giving him any sort of medical help, which is his right as a patient. The corporate media does not talk about that. World
Or that
Socialist website
1 in
did.
8 Minneapolis police has been trained in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And that is
and we're seeing we see these tactics and how they
Yep.
responded to
Yeah,
George
you'll
Floyd.
see the knee on the neck thing is very popular in Israel.
But also
They love that.
blocking medics from getting to
Yes. Or
anybody
shooting
who's
them. They like to shoot them in Israel too.
aren't
Yeah.
those like Mossad tactics and stuff too? Like, isn't
Mhm.
that like the intelligence community?
It's really
uses
basically
tactics?
any authoritarian piece of shit regime tactic,
the
that's what
IDF. The IDF tends to do it most, or the
yes.
IOF, as I like to
Oh
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is again, where are these stories being told? Like if I bring this up to a random bystander that isn't paying attention to someone like Tina Desiree Berg, who has been covering the live streams top to bottom, and it's like I'm one of those people that I can't watch the whole thing. One, because I will flip out and probably punch a wall based on how angry I get after watching 10 minutes of the testimonies and everything. But it's also everybody has jobs, right? We all have lives to lead. We all have families and other obligations. So it's very difficult to tune in to a 5-6 hour trial that's happening, which is why it's
Yeah.
important to have objective journalism. So it
Mm.
should be like if you're Lester Holt and you want to cover this thing objectively night after night after night, one, your whole broadcast has to be dedicated to this then because you need to go in depth with it. But if you're going to do headlines, you're choosing what to say. So people don't realize that this is written for him to fucking say, right? But
Mhm.
if you're an independent journalist like the World Socialist website or Left Voice or Gray Zone or what have you, what limits do you have? You're not locked into, your editor isn't going to say, well, Aaron Mate, you need to put all of this into 1,000 words. Then you
I
have
think
to
they
choose what
still
information goes out
self-censor
there.
though. I think they still self-censor. Like
Probably.
Aaron Matei has admitted to it.
Because if
So
not, Google will kill their site, and now nobody gets to know anything.
right, but I think that that's important to point out that even like the best among our journalists right now are so afraid
Yeah.
they're self-censoring. And that's not that shouldn't be the way that it is. Like in the perfect world, in my perfect world, journalism would be robust and free thinking and independent and kind of publicly funded and in all of those good things. And the people in power would be terrified to step out of line.
Yep.
They would be petrified to do anything corrupt or anything illegal because there was a very good chance that some journalist was going to come along and find out. That's the world I want to live in. People in power should be afraid of us.
Yeah.
That should
Yeah.
be the way that it is.
And just going back to George Floyd real quick, it really highlights the necessity of not having police officers respond to mental health crises.
Yes.
Police officers are not trained to
small
respond to mental health
crimes.
crises. Right.
Or small crimes, because this was a small crime. This was a counterfeit $20 bill. That's it. Why does that need 5 police officers to show up?
Somebody could just show up and like take a report and whatever. You don't need to come and even chasing this guy down, like any level of like police interaction beyond like just polite conversation should just never happen. It's like, hey, $20 bill, this is fake, come on, we're gonna have to talk about whatever. There should never be a point where there's physicality involved in that.
Exactly.
It's a counterfeit $20 bill. Really? He was murdered over a fake $20 bill?
Yeah.
Does that seem reasonable to anybody?
This is what a major metropolitan police force is focusing on. Counterfeit
Right?
$20
There's
bills.
not like,
Absurd.
why are
It's either
here's
that
my
or they're
problem. We're
displacing the
focusing
homeless.
on the wrong criminals. Like that dude with his fake $20 bill is not, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the people in $5,000 suits and what are they doing? That's crime I'm worried about. Like this dude with
Exactly.
his fake $20 bill is just trying to like get by. I'm not worried about
Right.
him. I'm really not. I'm really not.
Yeah.
Like
It
George
doesn't.
Floyd is no threat to me. He's just trying to get by.
Yeah.
Like all of us,
Yeah.
struggling, trying to figure things out. I'm more worried about the people in $5,000 suits who are screwing us all over. That's what I
Yeah.
want focused on.
And it's like they're either harassing average people for down to a misdemeanor. This would probably just be a misdemeanor. To
They
displacing
don't
the
serve
homeless.
us.
Yeah,
They don't
they don't.
serve you. The
No,
cops don't serve you. The cops serve power. They serve capital.
Mhm.
that's how
Period.
that's
End
how
of
they
story.
originated. And again,
End
it's
of
like you point
story.
that
You do
sort of
not,
stuff
the
out.
cops are not on your side at all, ever,
Yeah.
ever, ever.
But if you
Ever.
point that out, it's like I live in a very small community where everybody knows the cops because we have a small police
Mhm.
force here. And I see them maybe, somebody pointed this out, in Germany, they go weeks without seeing cops on the road. Like they just don't, they're not
Oh, no.
patrolling nonstop. I see a police cruiser once a week at most. In my
Oh,
old
yeah.
neighborhood,
That's
it
that's
was
one too
weird.
many times.
I see
Yeah,
a cop
I,
lots.
I mean, I get it, but I understand the reason why you would need the police, but what we're seeing in this country is not what that is. Like, if you really want
Oh.
to do community policing, then they need to be a part of the community, right? And they need,
Mhm.
and it's not this fucking, they don't
And
show
they
up
need
in
to
bulletproof
serve
vests.
the community
Yeah, and
and
they
not just
like
the power.
we had a case of I think some kind of an armed robbery which happens like once every 3 years in this neighborhood, and like, okay, that I understand, that you might need a guy with a gun to show up and make sure that things are, but if it's just like a drunk person at the Family Dollar, fucking call a social services person that knows how to talk to a drunk person that might have some mental health concerns, right? Don't put them
Right.
in prison. That's not where they need to
And
go.
I think people need to talk about the fact that if we address the causes of crime, that's not really
Yeah,
something we're going to have to worry about that much. I mean,
right.
will there still be crime? Of course. There's going to be
Yeah,
mentally ill people. I don't know that there's ever going to be a way that we can solve that issue entirely. It is just a matter of biology.
it's part of the human
But
condition.
maybe. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
want to say never because science and technology is fucking crazy. So who knows what the fuck they're going to be able to do.
right.
But yeah, like there's always going to be some level of criminality just based on humanity. That's some of us have some of that in us. There's going to be like fights over girls and bar fights and shit like that. But if you address the causes of crime, if you address poverty and economic inequality and the lack of access to decent education,
Hmm.
like in some poor communities, you can't even get like a decent school for your kid. It's like there's like mold growing on the walls and the books are like 25 years old and they're falling apart and
Yeah,
it's if we address all of those causes, like crimes is
it all
not
falls
crime
down
is
to
not going to be
economics.
something.
Yeah,
I
Yes.
mean,
it
that's
I mean,
does.
it
a
all just and
lot
it's
of this
no,
falls
it's
down
really
to
just
economics.
quality of life. It's not
Yeah.
forget economics.
And
It's really just quality of life. If you
Yeah,
provide a certain level of quality of life for your citizens, that rises everybody up. A lot of bad things dissipate and everybody is in a better way. It's really bizarre to me that I have to explain that to people. It's
well,
like
yeah,
common
but
sense.
that's not the norm. A kindness is never a default for us. Like that's not
Right.
what our society dictates, right? Like what
Yeah.
our society dictates is, if it's,
Individualism.
yeah, it's like Mike Pompeo, not having friends. That's what America. That's what they show you as like the quintessential American is the person that you don't really have friends. You got to keep everybody at arm's length and be
or a
one step
chin.
ahead of everybody, right?
Or a
And you got to.
chin. No, he has several.
He
remember,
does.
remember
He's
he had a if you go look at his, I don't know if it's still up, but when he was like holding office, his like official page, like if you looked at it, it was a really bad Photoshop job of his chins, and it's obvious, it's really terribly done, and people have been like talked about it for months, and he kept it up, and I'm like, dude, everybody is talking
And
about
they
Like that's
He's
bad.
They
He's a
probably
pudgy
they
teddy
probably
bear
spent
man.
hours on it trying to figure it out, and they're like, oh, fuck it.
Yeah. I think Steve calls them a giant blob of satanic jello. Yeah.
That's an insult to say.
All right.
But that's the thing.
That's an
It's
insult
like,
to jello too.
people are not encouraged to be good to each other. Like we see it as a threat. Like my
Yeah.
ex used to do that. Every time that I was like nice to her, it was always that I wanted something, and I was like, I'm just being nice because you're
Or you
having a
did
bad
something
day.
wrong and you're
Or,
like
yeah, like
making
what
up
did
for
you
it. Like I
do?
get that a lot.
Yeah, it's just like you're having a
Yeah.
bad day. I got you some fucking tear. Like, can't you just accept the thing? But we can't.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
really,
bad
really
about
hard for
that.
us to do. But that's how the society is conditioned us. That is a problem within
We
capitalism.
need like a mass shift in consciousness. Like we really do need to start thinking like, decent human being. Like to me, it seems so ridiculous that that's even a conversation we have to have. Like, okay, grown-ups shouldn't solve their problems by bombing people. That just seems like a pretty basic thing that we should be able to say, right? Like we teach our kids growing up, use your words, don't hit, don't bite your kid, don't bite your friends, whatever. And then like we raise them in a society in
Listen,
which
that's a
like
very
our
specific thing. Don't bite the kids is like a real
well, I
specific.
was thinking of honestly, in my
You
head,
can
what
you
just
can
happened there.
nibble, but
No,
don't bite.
listen. There's a Yo Gabba Gabba episode with Jack Black where, or no, there's like an interview with Jack Black because Jack Black was on Yo Gabba Gabba one time, and he was talking about how he uses the show for his son to be like, see, they said like don't bite your friends because there's an episode where it's like don't bite your friends. You know what I mean? It's like this whole thing. Yo Gabba Gabba is seriously, if you
awesome.
like, I'm not kidding. Get high and watch Yo Gabba Gabba. It's a lot of fun.
Done.
Fun. It's
Also,
a little annoying. Some of them are a little annoying, but
was there a
yeah.
concern? Was there like a child biting epidemic going on across the country?
No, but you know what I mean.
I
You know
know.
what I mean. But that's like the things that we teach our kids, and then we
Yes.
raise them in a society
Yeah.
that like elevates sociopaths who bomb people for shits and giggles and for power and oil.
That's
That makes no
Yeah.
sense. Like
That's why we
That was-
fetishize people
should
like
be able to
Elon Musk
handle
and Jeff
conflict
Bezos.
without. Oh my God, grown adults should be able to handle conflict without bombs.
Y'all don't
Yeah.
remember
That's
Bitegate?
What?
Y'all don't remember Bitegate, the epidemic
No.
of child biting?
Oh, I don't remember that. Or did the Biden dogs bite somebody? Because that's
was
like news apparently.
2008.
Like if they poop in the hallway, it's news. So if
Yeah.
they bite somebody, I'm sure
that is
would be-
something. I'm pretty sure my mother was concerned that I was gonna like get into fights and bite people. Like that is something because I was like crazy and not good at fighting as a kid. So I would like resort to weird tactics like until I started like learning martial arts, and then my mom was like, "Oh, this is a bad idea for you to do that too." But like I would like jump on people's backs and shit because I was like a little fucking scrawny kid and I didn't know how to fight. So whenever I would get picked on by bullies, I would like jump on them because it
I
would
can totally
freak
see you
them
doing
out.
that.
Or I would try to
Yeah.
kiss. I would try to kiss them too. That's a thing that would freak them out too. Is like, and then they would back off because they didn't want to catch the gay or whatever kids believed in the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that
the
was
gay
like
was,
my tactic.
yeah, that sounds familiar.
There's a
It
lot
was
of
like,
contagious gay going around.
yeah. Back in the 90s, that was a real problem where the only
It was a
vaccine was
pandemic.
Yeah. Gay gate.
But I mean
Oh,
that's the
so
thing is like
stupid.
we're taught as kids to be kind, right? And I
Right.
never got this particularly to work, but like one of the earliest lessons we learn is sharing and caring, which is
Right.
socialism.
I didn't teach my kids that. Do you want to know why? I feel like that's weird. Like you shouldn't have to share with somebody. Like
No.
I don't know. Like that. I
You
don't know.
shouldn't
That
have
always felt weird to me.
It's nice
Right.
if you
It's nice.
like
Yeah.
there's a carton of ice cream in the fridge that's just for me. Like nobody gets to eat my ice cream. That's but like if if I'm eating chips and hummus, I'm like, come enjoy, eat
Right.
this thing with
Yeah.
me. Like I understand that, but it's like the whole mutual aid thing. It's solidarity, not charity, right? Like you
Right.
can if you want to donate, but it's not an absolute necessity that you do. And I think when you
Right.
frame it in that kind of way, no one feels forced that they need to do it. Like that's
And I think they then feel more inclined to
yeah,
do it
yeah,
because it does feel more like community. And they know that if they participate and then one day they need something, their community will be there for them.
exactly.
And so it's not just about it becomes more about the whole, the group, and becoming part of something,
It's the
you know.
principle
You
of
know what I mean?
Gestalt.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's just
Right.
it's a society just run on the principle of a Gestalt, which is kind of how socialism operates too. So it's like, but again, that is a concept that I think I learned what the Gestalt was in like first grade, right? And like it was a concept that was when you first get introduced to it as a child, it's kind of a difficult concept to understand and get used to. But then once you figure it out, you're like, this is kind of awesome. Like you get to be part of this really awesome thing, and like, you get to help each other out, and other people get to help you out, and you get to be like, and that's really cool. But that's not how like capitalism only talks about individualism, right? They don't talk about like the way that it's presented is you're either an individual or you're a cog in the machine. Like everybody has to do the exact same thing. And that's how they present what socialism is, which is untrue because it's all in the middle. Like you can be an individual as part of a group, right? Like,
Yeah.
but that's what the
That
Avengers
should be
are.
that's like normal society, like healthy
Yeah,
society
yeah,
where you
like
can still be
that's what every fucking superhero group is. That like, it's like it's a bunch of individuals in a group, all for the
right?
same cause of stopping a fucking alien threat or whatever the fuck it is, right? Like, and you get to see that's one of the things that I think is very subtly said in some of these superhero movies that also have, you know, CIA operatives making sure the script is
Right.
okay. And you can't ever unsee that once you learn that. but
Yeah.
but they do kind of show you like for example, because I just watched this a couple weeks ago, it's like Civil War kind of shows you like how two people in the same group can have a disagreement and still be well, they weren't okay at the end of the movie, but eventually things will work out. Like if you learn how to
Well,
talk
and you
about
don't even have
yeah,
to like somebody. Like I can
yeah,
really dislike somebody, but also have a common goal and realize that we're going to get to that common goal quicker if we just work together on it. And I still don't have to
exactly.
I don't have to like you for that. That's
Right.
okay. And we can
Yeah,
disagree on other things and we can come to those conversations when we need to, but if you're going to help me get to that thing I want faster, I'm cool with that.
yeah.
you know,
Let's
I'm
make it
down with
work.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
I've
do
definitely
that thing.
worked in group projects where I didn't like the person I was
Right?
working with, but we're like,
It's
we
like a
got to do
grown up
this Dwight
thing.
Eisenhower presentation, and you're
Yeah,
talking about his child, like,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is about dialogue and and possibly
Checking your
sharing
ego.
competing narratives with each other. Yeah, checking your ego as well, and really honing
It's
your
hard. I get it.
your empathy, which I don't think is that hard for a lot of people. I think it's there, but there's so much information, so much repressive and oppressive information being shot at us every day that it's so easy to fall into what y'all were just talking about as far as hyper individualism under capitalism and looking out for person number one and maybe person number two if I feel like it or I get around to it. But
Well,
um,
and it's so clear that that's a tool that is used against us. When we talked to
mhm,
Sam Carliner, he was talking about how in the Amazon fulfillment centers, you are put in a position and in conditions in which you do not have the time or the space. Like you're not even in the same space as your coworkers. There's no interaction. You can go, working there for a whole year and never know the people who are working around you, never know their names, not talk to them
right,
ever. So
right,
there's no bonding, there's no community, there's no chance for them to talk talk about the shitty work conditions and how maybe they should unionize. And so that's very clearly a tool used against us, to keep us separate from each other, to keep us thinking that we are all each other's enemies. They don't want us working together. And
to turn us
that's
into
why I know.
automatons.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where
George
we're
Carlin
just
George
at the
Carlin talked
assembly
about this
line.
like in the fucking 90s, the 80s. I mean, we should have listened to him. He said they just want you smart enough to run the machine. That's it.
Yep.
And once they automate everything, they have no more need for us. There's
Right.
what need do they have for us? Once they have robots to do all of their work for them, what do you think's going to happen to us?
Well, then it becomes what they showed in Elysium. I don't know if you watched that movie or not, but that's basically what it is. It's like, everybody on Earth is basically living in squalor and suffering and like, gone back to the age of like trading and scavenging for shit. And then you have a bunch of rich people that live in the space colony.
Moon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like they have perfect lives, and whatever they need is harvested on Earth by these fucking people that need to survive on Earth, and and that's it, and that's how that system works, and that's kind of the direction that we're heading in, which is part of the reason why, if you're gonna push for full automation of various different industries, then you need to figure out how to take care of your populace.
Then you need like a UBI type situation,
right,
or something.
It's the only thing that makes sense, is because then you have to also push people to be like, well, you have to discover your own purpose, right? Like you have to take time to self-reflect, right? Which is what downtime is supposed to be, like the day that you take off or whatever. But again, in the States and in various different countries, like you get a weekend, you get 2 days off after 5 days of working, and
then that's if you're lucky.
And that's if you're lucky, yeah, like that's if you're really lucky. But one of those days is automatically gone to taking care of everything else, right?
Life.
Groceries, or you got to
laundry,
fix up the house,
cleaning,
laundry, whatever.
Yeah.
So then you maybe get an extra day to actually relax and reflect and partake in some sort of recreational activity or whatever it is. So in reality, like, we don't really get that much time to reflect and enjoy life for what it is, because we don't have the time to do it. So really what we need is like a 3-day weekend, and you could boil a workday down to like 30 hours, right? And that 30 hours should be enough money. Like, you should be making enough money that you don't have to worry about your bills. You don't have to worry about your expenses or putting food on the table or whatever, and still have a little bit of money to go have fun with.
Yeah.
But that's not how capitalism
basic
operates.
Standard of living. Yeah, that's why capitalism is always comes back to that, you guys. Like, it really does.
Keep you at most at the baseline, so you have to keep working.
Right.
And
they constantly
surviving.
want to convince you that you're like just one just lucky break away from being a millionaire. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that they give you that on it, and you're going to be struck by lightning like 35 times.
Just be patient. It's trickling down.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's called breadcrumbing.
Just any minute now. Any minute. Here it comes. And
Yeah.
you're going to be the lucky one. Yeah. And you're not ever going to be a millionaire, you guys. That's just not how the system has worked. It's very difficult.
Even if you do become a millionaire, like, they've done research to show that it objectively changes your psychology in most cases. There's obviously one or two, I think, like, well, crap, what's his name? He's some guy in Seattle that like advocated for a $15 an hour minimum wage back in the early 2000s, when that was like actually something that would matter. And
Right.
like, now it should be like upwards of 30, but
30,
like,
yeah.
he was pushing for what a minimum wage should be, what a livable wage should be. And this guy was like a millionaire, and he used to be one of
I think that
board
some
on
of them
Amazon.
are able to maintain some of, like, Mark Cuban, for example, will occasionally say something that I'm like, okay, Mark Cuban, but
Yeah,
he's
way to go,
still
buddy.
fundamentally different. Like he's different than
The
us, you know.
psychology, when you have that much money and you no longer, not even just have to worry about your basic needs, but like
But
your
nothing.
frivolous.
You can do anything.
Yeah, you can just do what, like, if Mark Cuban doesn't have to do dick all, like, he literally can show up to one board meeting with his dick hanging out, and he still gets to make millions of fucking dollars because nobody
Yeah.
in that board is going to care.
He
So,
can go anywhere he wants to go, anytime he wants to go there. He can buy anything that he wants. He can and there's nothing. There's really like no restrictions on his life in
so
any
yeah.
way.
So what
I
happens in that sense is you look for a different purpose, and because you're kind of like disassociated from other human beings, you just do what Jeff Bezos does, and you create this like incredibly fucked up work environment, but you think it's for the common good because you're benefiting from it. So if he's benefiting from it, then his
Everybody must be.
disassociation is saying that everybody benefits from it.
Well, and that's a
Yeah,
heavy
and
dose
it's
of
like that's just
narcissism
not
too.
true.
It's
Yeah,
just a
so
repackaging of the myth of trickle down economics.
yep,
Hmm.
yep. If I'm doing well, then everybody has to do well. You know, I'm providing
At
like
least they
it,
have jobs.
yeah,
They should be thanking me.
it gives them this God complex of like, well, I'm taking care of, you know,
This whole
150,000
community.
employees. Yeah,
Yeah.
when it's like it's not a community if nobody within your community feels safe and can actually have a fucking conversation with each other. And if they're
And they
peeing in
like there's no
bottles, like,
stability and
Yeah.
there's no quality of life and there's no, no. And they have to work 12, 14-hour days and pee in bottles and
yep,
like they all have like hip injuries and knee injuries because they have to like basically run while doing their job constantly and they're on their feet the entire time. Like if
entire
you
time.
there's no
Yep.
breaks, there's no, like that's fucked up. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
again, that's something that we accept and that's just normalized and that's an okay thing and people celebrate Jeff Bezos. Like we should be outraged like there should be rallies and all kinds of stuff going on in opposition to what Jeff Bezos is doing and it's like nobody
There are so many
cares.
cynical people though who say, well, they should feel lucky that they even have a job.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
Right.
that's
but
not
that's
how
no,
it goes.
no. I said this the other day. You guys, you run this country. Like the people of this country, we run this country. There's a handful of jackasses who think that they have all the power and control. There are so many more of us than there are of them, and they couldn't do shit without you. And you
Wait.
deserve better. I don't
Hold
know
on a second.
why Americans have let themselves be beaten down to where they just think that this is the best that they get. This is it. This is what you deserve. This is it. Just suck it up. And no, you deserve to be able to go to the doctor. You deserve a decent job. You deserve time off with your family. You deserve to be able to pay your bills and live with dignity and be able to eat decent food. And like that shouldn't be an outrageous thing to say. Like that shouldn't be yes, that's not, it's again, America, the United States of America, the year 2021. I think we can provide that for our people at this point. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever aside from the greed of like a handful of fuckwads that's keeping us from doing that.
Missy, are you saying that America does not run on Duncan? Because that's what I
Only it's
thought.
Northeast, really. I know there's a lot of Dunkins in Boston, so
I've been snorting Dunkin' Donut coffee for.
I don't have a lot of Dunkins around me. I'm in Ohio.
I know
mean,
you guys have Tim Hortons, which is
we do have Tim Hortons. There's a lot of
infinitely better
those.
coffee.
Yeah,
Infinitely
we have a
better
lot of
coffee.
Tim Hortons.
I just
guess
feel like Dunkin' coffee just tastes like burnt.
Why doesn't Tim Hortons have an apostrophe before the S?
I don't know. Does it not?
I think it does. I think it's cursive. Oh man, now I gotta look that up.
I know. Now I gotta look it up. But maybe the
what-
last name is Hortons. Like I don't know.
But then wouldn't it be S apostrophe? Why is it just his name?
I don't
Like-
know, dude.
I open a place and just name it Jesse's or Wells.
Oh,
I'm
he's
looking.
right. There is.
Is there
no
not
apostrophe.
one?
Yeah, there's no apostrophe.
Oh, it's a
Man,
mystery. Is that like a Mandela effect thing?
that's crazy.
There must be a reason.
I'm sure there is. I'll look it up later because now I'm intrigued and I'm a nerd, so I'll research it.
I've noticed it, but I've never looked it up.
That's what I do.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like research dumb shit all the time. Ugh,
Well, I mean,
ridiculous. Okay,
to kind of
anyways.
bring it back to the original point is the
Yeah.
reason why
Yes.
people sit there and are okay with what Amazon does and say callous things like, well, at least they have a job and all,
Hmm.
and then they kind of deify someone like Jeff Bezos or Tim Cook or Bill Gates or whoever it is. They kind of deify them is primarily because the corporate narrative is, look how well these people are doing, right? Like
They're success
it's
stories.
yeah, like I said this in one of my stand-up albums, which is, Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and his claim to objectivity is the fact that the Washington Post has criticized Amazon before. And one of the
Hmm.
big stories that they talked about was the fact that they found a dead fetus in an Amazon warehouse, which is the weirdest brag I've heard anybody do. Like
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
paper that you owned reported on that is just like a weird fucking brag for you. And it's like, this is the person we're supposed to champion. This is the person that we're supposed to look at and aspire to. Like, I have no interest in aspiring to a
No.
megalomaniac fucking
Yeah. I want to.
sociopathic
I want to.
murderer, essentially.
I want to know if the woman from whom that fetus came is okay. What happened?
Right. Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't really talk about it. They're just like, see, we can criticize Jeff Bezos too, even though we're owned by him. So
Right.
objectivity. And it's like,
Yeah.
again, that was the point of that article. That article is not to say, look how horrible the work conditions are. Let's rally together to do something about it.
No.
It was none of that. It was just,
Well, that's
see, we can be
spin.
objective. It's spin. Yeah, exactly. And it's the
It's
same thing
spin
with,
and it's carefully considered coverage of something that has nothing really to do with the like real problem, and that's how they get around it. So they can occasionally bring up something that's like kind of abstract and doesn't really matter, and they can say, "See, we criticize Jeff Bezos,"
right.
but they're not really talking about the actual problem with Jeff Bezos. What problems? Because there are a lot of
Yeah,
problems with Jeff
many
Bezos.
problems.
He's a problem. And yeah, so
Yeah. The Washington
it's
Post should change its "Democracy
Bezos
dies in
posts.
darkness" to
Uh,
"Democracy is dead."
or democracy dies in an Amazon fulfillment center.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yes.
I know it's a
Touche.
little wordy, but I like it.
I think it'll
Um,
work. I think it'll work.
I
It'll
think I
probably
So
like
fit in their little masthead.
we've been talking about all these very explosive, to use a cliche, points of divisiveness, that most of which, if not all of which, stem from capitalism, and it's like we've been saying, to keep us apart, so we can't coalesce, so we can't form um, a large movement that takes down all these horrible structures we've been talking about. And I think that what we're seeing with social media and people being deplatformed and demonetized is another iteration of that, of keeping us divided, so we can't build these networks with each other and get information out there that otherwise wouldn't get out there. I don't know what either of you thinks of that, but I think
yeah.
that's not the only reason we're seeing it, but I think it's a big reason.
Yeah, I think the divide and conquer maneuver is very much in effect, and I think they keep pushing it. It's like, how many people have read, and I haven't fully read it either, but how many people have even read 10 pages of A People's History of the United States? Like, that's a book that basically shatters everything you learn about American history at school. And so
Right.
it's not something that's taught. It's something that you read on your own and you come to your own conclusions. But there's a portion of the book, and I talked to Ron Placone about this, that it basically points out, like, James Madison in one of his Federalist Papers was writing about how we need to have this giant country so that there can never be a revolution from within again, because the people would be so spread out, and they wouldn't be able to communicate with each other as effectively, and they can't really organize to have a mass uprising again. Right now, all of that has changed because of things like social media and cell phones and stuff like that. But even then, it's like, who advises Facebook. It's the Atlantic Council. They're like a fucking NATO think tank, right? Like that's why are they advising Facebook? Well, it's because they found out that this is a mass way of communicating. It's a mass way of organizing. I mean, that's early on in the pandemic. That's how I was finding out about like, car caravans for cancel the rent protests. I didn't find that out because I saw it on, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette or some shit. I literally saw somebody that is in the activist community post about it in a group related to activism that I'm in. And even then, I saw it like 2 hours before the protest was supposed to happen. So, it was like, well, how am I supposed to get all my shit together and go to and make us, like participate in this thing when Facebook's algorithms are showing me a protest that's happening 5 miles from my house 2 hours before it's happening? That's crazy. And you have to register so that they know how to, and it's like, so they're now using the thing that can connect all of us to manipulate us, to continue to divide
and
us.
to put us into our own little echo chambers so that we don't hear outside opinions. You're very much shoved into a box.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, and that's, so now they've basically used what Madison wanted to do with westward expansion to the internet, and now Google is getting involved where, certain sites don't get shown to a lot of people. They don't show up when you look some stuff up because they're not ranked the right way. And
one of my favorite things to do is to Google something and then duck, go the same thing and see the difference and the results that you get. It's telling.
Yeah. It's wild the way that all that stuff works. And then the other thing too is like if you look something up on your computer versus something up on your phone, the results on Google are different from there too. So it's so the way they built it is based on platforms, based on IP addresses and stuff. And so it's just like, this is not, how are we supposed to communicate with each other? How are we supposed to learn? How are we supposed to find out, Well,
we're not supposed to. That's the point. They don't want us doing that. And
the narrative has to be
That's
controlled.
what drives me crazy, though, is that people just seem to be okay with that. Like, yeah, it's cool if they have control over every piece of information I'm allowed to see, hear, read, write, talk about. That's no.
But that
I'm
all
not
comes
okay
from
with
being
that.
afraid, though. They're just terrified of another Trump, and because Trump was the worst thing ever.
And I think a lot of people are really not aware of how bad it is. Like how really, really bad it is. I'm aware because of what I do, but the attacks on the First Amendment have been going on for a long time, decades. But over the past like 10 to 15 years, it has been ramped up to a level that is terrifying. And they have been systematically destroying the First Amendment in broad daylight. And I can't get anybody to care. Nobody cares. It's pulling teeth to get people to even like tweet free Assange or to even talk about the fact that we are currently torturing a journalist to death for the crime of exposing collateral murder. Today, right now, the day that we are recording this is the 11th anniversary of the collateral murder video. Not a single person responsible for the war crimes exposed in that video have ever been held to any accountability. Chelsea Manning has been tortured multiple times and jailed repeatedly, and Julian Assange is currently right now being tortured to death in a supermax prison in London. And that doesn't make sense. That should not be the society that we want to live in, where war criminals walk free and truth tellers are persecuted.
Are put in prison.
That's ridiculous. Like that like completely mystifies me that that's an acceptable thing. Like why would you want to raise your kids when like we all tell our kids to like tell the truth. You should tell the truth. And then Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning tell the truth and they're villainized and tortured and prosecuted and jailed.
It's tell the truth when it's between this line and this line. If it's the truth outside those lines, then we can't accept it. I mean, the amount of people that come up to me
is that like the acceptable prayers conversation.
Well,
there's foot.
Yeah. Can't step outside.
This is about
even a toe. Even a toe, and you're out. Like they'll take you down. They'll spend 10. Well, I guess Julian Assange was more than a toe outside. To be fair,
but I still have a lot of
he's
people
a little bit more than
to me, and they'll say something like, well, didn't Assange help Trump get elected? And that's the big fear, which is false, but that's the fear, right? They created this boogeyman out of Trump. They created this villain out of Trump so much that they can basically use his name as an excuse to do whatever the fuck they want. Now they're going to do the same thing with January 6th because that's connected to Trump, and that's the coup de grace, that's the big finale, right? And
Patriot Act 2.0 is coming.
Yeah, I see people justifying Andrew Cuomo and what he did with lying about the nursing home debts.
Nursing homes. Yeah.
And they're legitimately, the administration's response was, well, Trump would have grabbed hold of those numbers and criticized states with Democratic governors, and we couldn't have that. And the DOJ just accepted that response. They're not being not being prosecuted. He's not getting kicked out of office. None of the Democrats are going after Andrew Cuomo for any of this shit. But it was oh well, Trump. And he
including progressives, by the way, including your yes queens and Bernie Sanders. Have you heard Bernie Sanders talk about Andrew Cuomo? I sure haven't. I haven't. I mean, there's been like some tepid statements of like, oh, that's bad. But the dude lied about people dying in nursing homes. Imagine if that were your grandparent.
Exactly.
He's a shitheel, and not one of them are calling him out. Not one. Okay, I guess that's fine too. Ugh.
Well, that's the thing.
I just hate the inconsistency.
That's the thing, is if you have a really good boogeyman, if you have a really good villain, you can basically, in the name of that villain, do whatever the fuck you want, right? It becomes like Voldemort. Like, oh, don't say Voldemort because he might show up and not be able to kill a baby. Like, that's the whole fucking premise of Harry Potter. And like, but that's the way, like, the Hogwarts got to do whatever the fuck they want because, oh man, we have to keep people safe from Voldemort. So now the establishment is basically going to use Trump as a way to like justify whatever the fuck they're doing. And it's the same thing that they did with Assange, to the point where I have like intelligent people still saying, well, didn't Assange get Trump elected? Didn't he help get Trump elected? Isn't he connected to the Trump campaign?
Didn't he work with the Russians? Why doesn't he ever leak anything on Russia? Why doesn't he ever leak anything on Republicans? Like, there's a handy dandy search feature, wikileaks.org. There's a little, it says search keywords. Type in Russia, see what happens.
Yeah,
it's easy. You can do it.
You can do it. You can do it.
I can't, give them any sort of legitimacy. That's crazy. And so it's whatever excuse they want not to actually go find out the truth, because it's easier and more comfortable for them to live in whatever version of truth that they've accepted from the corporate establishment narrative. So so now it's this justification for censorship, right? So, oh, your channel's going to get deleted, or your video gets taken down, or you're not allowed to do this, that, or the third on your on the platform that lets you communicate with the world. When and for me, it's like the way that I was communicating with people was not just the videos, but when I would go on tour, I would see people across the country 2 or 3 times a year, and it was great, and we got to catch up, and I get to learn more about what's going on in the country. Well, I can't do that right now, so the way that I'm doing that is through live streams, the virtual shows, doing these podcasts and stuff. So if that gets censored, then how are we going to find out what's going on in different parts of the world? And people are just fine with it because well, do you want another Trump? No, I don't want another Trump. But if this is okay with you because you're scared of another Trump, then you're going to get something worse.
Do those people realize that like the system that gave us Trump is what they're endorsing by saying that? That's exactly the mindset that got us Trump. Yep. That is exactly the mindset that brought us to Trump.
I made that argument about Biden where I was like, at best, Biden will go back to Obama era politics. At worst, he'll go back to doing what he did with the 94 crime bill, and we'll see that version of like what would happen if that politician was in power at that point, right?
Well, and I don't think he's in power of his mind, let alone in power of actually the country. He's not making any decisions. There's no way.
Yeah.
And just to bring up what's been happening at the U.S.'s southern border, the number of people, kids included, in cages or detained there it's set to rise to 15,500 under Biden, the highest it's ever been. They have 10,000 there now currently, and they expect 5,000 more migrants and refugees.
Yeah, they
And
have facilities that are like 5 times their capacity. Like there's like
yeah,
5 times the amount of people that should be in that building. And I'm supposed to believe that like and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tells me I'm privileged if I talk about that. Fuck
Yeah,
you.
right.
Fuck you. Sorry, but fuck you. No, that's
Privilege,
That
not
was an
privilege.
insane
You're
interview.
disgusting.
privileged is getting to do shitty live streams of you cooking in your kitchen
In your
and
tax rich sweatshirt
and
that costs 65
and
fucking dollars on your website.
and then happily complaining that you got so caught up in talking about COVID-19 relief that all you got to do while you were cooking your salmon was zest a lemon. Like, who gives a fuck? Maybe that's why we can't get anything from you, because you're too
Did she
busy
actually
zesting your
complain about
goddamn
that?
lemons.
Yes, she's
She
so
tweeted that out,
manufactured and
and then
disgusting.
Ilhan Omar responded with the emoji, the laughing one with the tears, and I was
Of
like,
course she did.
Oh man.
Ugh.
Oh man.
I'm sorry. I understand that I'm going to get a lot of shit about this because the squad stands really dislike me.
Yeah.
But they're dangerous. They stand directly in the way of progress. They are sheep herding people back into a corrupt party and a corrupt system. They're gaslighting their own supporters in defense of a warmongering racist. And you're telling me I'm being divisive by not supporting them. No,
Right.
fuck off.
Right.
Those people are imperialist pieces of shit who have nothing to say about what's happening in Syria or Venezuela or Iran or any number of other countries where we are decimating the populations there. And I'm not supporting that. You want to support that? Go ahead. Get off my ass. Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar should feel ashamed of herself being a refugee from Somalia. Does that obligate her to involve herself in certain politics and take certain stances? I don't know. That's an argument to be had. I think it does to some extent, and
it's hard to ignore it when you're from that world.
Yeah.
And you have that much of a position of power.
But they all strike me as children in a way, or childish in a way, and I can't take them seriously. But it would be laughable, except for the fact that they are towing the line of imperialism.
But that's what we celebrate with them, and like, I know people have spoken about this endlessly, but this is the only country that fetishizes and celebritizes their politicians. Like nobody, and Ron Placone said this, and I think it's like the best thing is like no one is waiting for Justin Trudeau to start a fucking podcast or Boris Johnson to do a live stream on Instagram. But for whatever reason in America, it's like, this is what we do. Like, let's watch AOC zest a lemon for her salmon or whatever the fuck it is. And, and it's just like, it's all these things where we look at, like fucking Andrew Cuomo won an Emmy. For doing daily press
for his
conferences.
COVID response, and the dude lied about killing grandmas, and he got an Emmy.
He got an Emmy.
We live in a cartoon. We live in a cartoon.
Like,
period. That's fucking crazy.
I've started like not watching award shows. I haven't watched an award show in like 5 or 6 years.
Since I was 16, right? No joke. Yeah, I haven't watched one since I was 16.
I used to go to my buddy's like Oscar party once a year, and I basically was just like, nah, I'm good. Like, this is a night off for me, and I'm just gonna keep it as a night off. Like, I just stopped giving a shit about this. But now
it's so masturbatory.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it's awful. It's like it's like the industry like loving itself for being rich and like it's
rich and fabulous and beautiful.
But now that Andrew Cuomo, who literally one of his live streams is him reciting the day of the week for the first 5 minutes, like it's just him going like, it's Saturday, it's the day that follows Friday and usually comes before Sunday. Can we all agree? Can I get a motion? And it's just like, and I'm like, that won an Emmy? Like, was there? I know Netflix put out better shit than that trash, but now it's just like it makes the Emmy.
Hey, he stayed up all night writing that.
He did not. Some aide did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't. No, he didn't do shit.
Describe the day of the week for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sure,
he read it 30 minutes before and was like, okay. Yeah. Come on.
But it's like it
People,
makes the
they're
evidence
not.
just not matter
That's
anymore.
that's what I wish people would realize. And I think that actually, I tweeted about this. I got heat for it again, of course, but I was like, AOC's acting coach should really tell her to tone it down because the overacting is really tipping people off. And it really is. A lot of people are really starting to recognize how full of absolute shit she is.
Yeah.
And that's good. Like, that's great. I wish it would happen faster almost. Like, if you're going to, like, okay, accelerate that shit. But yeah, I think that, like, in this country, and Chris, you're so right. Like, I call them celebriticians. And these people really don't have a lot of power. They're in positions of power, but really it's the lobbyists and it's the corporations and it's the donors. And these are just paid like figureheads. Like they just go up there and like put on the show, That's really all they are. They're the actors on the stage, but they're not the writers. They're not the director. They're not guiding the ship in any way, shape, form, or fashion. They're just there to perform a
line about Israel, AIPAC
and
will
they'll
cancel
shut
your
you
career
down.
like that.
Yeah, well, that
And there
almost
are
happened to
many-
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at what they did to Tulsi Gabbard. Like, I know a lot of people have feelings about her, and I'm not a big fan of hers either. But look what they did to her. It's pretty clear. Like so yeah, none of these people are really in any. And if you do like try to have any agency or any independent thought or they will do to you what they did to Tulsi Gabbard, and that's why you can't work within this system. There's no reforming.
Like Andrew Yang got a fucking CNN contract and started a podcast where he it's just him and a bunch of other fucking rich CEOs like talking about how cool they are and shit. Like
he's not a serious person. He is not. I think he is very much like he's in this for vanity.
Yeah. Totally.
He's an epic level douche canoe. I don't know why. And I've been saying that literally since he showed up. And I can tell you that the Yang Gang, I'm blocked by most Yang Gang people.
The Yang Gang doesn't. The Yang Gang doesn't like me either.
If Andrew Yang participated in an orgy, would it be a Yang Bang?
Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, we should probably wrap up. We've been going for a couple of hours, and I know we always take up so much of your time, Krish. I'm sorry about that.
That's a good
we do that every time you come on, because I feel like I could talk to you for hours. So it's like every time you come on, it's
I know, I do the same thing.
But yeah, let everybody know where they can follow you and follow your stuff, especially because Krish really has been dealing with a lot of bullshit on YouTube. So yeah, tell them everywhere that they can find your work and support you.
Yeah, my website's the easiest place to find all my stuff, which is krishmohanhaha.com. It's KrishMohanhaha.com. At Krish Mohan on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I'm on minds.com. And my Rockfin channel is rockfin.com/krishmohanhaha. And there's a lot of free content on there, but every so often I'll put up a couple of premium videos. Like the live streams I do will go up on which happen, well, they're going to change, but they happen on most weekdays at around 12:30. But again, the time of that's going to change because I have to like get a new part.
But I just want to say, the great thing about Rockfin though is that you can go and like endorse or sponsor any show that you want for the $9.99 a month, and then you get access to everybody's premium stuff. Jesse and I don't do premium stuff. But a lot of really amazing people, Slow News Day, Nico House, Combo Couch, Krish, Last American Vagabond, Whitney Webb, like they have some premium stuff up. But if you just do the one monthly thing, then you get access to everybody, which is really cool, I think. So
yeah,
we did do one premium
like that.
with Jesse. With Jesse, yeah.
I didn't know you put it up as premium.
I can change it.
Okay. No, I don't care.
I like Rockfin a lot, and it's great that there's like an actual person I can talk to over at Rockfin. So and a lot of the content that I throw up, I will put it up on Rockfin first, so you get a lot of like early access stuff on Rockfin as well. And the streams, usually when I do the live streams, are free, and then a day later I put them up as premium content. So so I'm just I'm really trying to push and build the Rockfin. I'm on Odyssey as well. So, but the easiest way to find all that stuff, again, rockfin.com/krishmohanhaha, or directly on my website at krishmohanhaha.com. That's
excellent.
The easiest way to find
and
my stuff.
You can also find his albums on Bandcamp. I don't know if you mentioned that. I might have forgotten you saying that. But, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like promoting you for you. Sorry.
No, It's better because I'm horrible at it, and I'll forget stuff and
I
be
am
like, people are like,
okay.
"Oh, you did this
Here's
other
the
thing?"
thing. I am great at promoting other people, I've realized.
Yeah,
But I'm terrible at promoting myself. Like that's a thing. Like it's a
yeah.
weird thing. Like I never talk about
Hate
and
it.
like when I it's I need to get better at it. It's bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hate
So
that whole self-promotional aspect.
it's
But
too
I've
weird.
like had to force myself into doing it, so
Well,
I totally get it.
Misty, I forgot to tell you as far as promotion, I found this great little boutique PR group called the Podesta Group, and they do really fantastic promotion.
We should
Whatever,
totally sign up with that.
whatever you want done, they'll get it done.
Well, I
Just
mean,
has
I
to be
am
a,
Mindy Moneybags, so we can definitely afford to get that kind of consulting, and we can hire them definitely.
okay.
I did learn that Fiorella and Johnny are rich too now, though. So now Mindy Moneybags has two rich friends, and it's
Oh, that's
nice.
Oh,
awesome.
We're all gonna go to brunch.
on Melrose.
Anyways, so before we close out, I do just want to remind everybody again. Sorry, today you probably won't see this today, so I'll just tell you about April 11th is the 2-year. I hate even saying anniversary. It's such a stupid word for this, but it will be 2 years since Julian Assange was kidnapped from the Ecuadorian embassy and trafficked to Belmarsh. And he is still there. It's ridiculous that he's still there. The extradition ruling was denied, and then he was denied bail. It's like, hey, we've tortured this guy so bad that he is in such a precarious mental health condition that we can't possibly extradite him to the United States because their prison system is too oppressive and he's a suicide risk. But we're going to keep him in the same conditions that put him in that state arbitrarily because we're assholes, imperialist pieces of shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is April 11th. There are actions all around the country. The best place to find them is if you go to Twitter at Candles for Assange. Alex Hills, my dear friend Alex Hills, who is an amazing activist and organizer and general badass. Like she's like banned from like places of government in her country because she's so much of a badass. So
That's
yeah, go to
awesome.
Candles for Assange. All of the global events are there. So make sure you check that out. Find one near you. If you can't find one near you, be one near you. All it takes is a poster board and a Sharpie, and you can be a protest in your community. So go do that. We'll help you. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there one more time before April 11th because it's a big deal and he shouldn't be there. So yeah, thanks Krish for being here. We
Thank you
always have
guys
a
for
good time
having
when
me.
you're on the show.
Yeah, thanks,
And yeah,
Krish.
we'll catch you guys next time.
All
Yay.
right. Peace, y'all.